Three characters. That's all that it sometimes takes for people to have an image or an opinion formed in their mind. USA, UFO, MI6, 007, GTI. And it's that last one that we're going to talk about today. Because when we hear the letters GTI, we immediately think of the Volkswagen Golf. Now, it wasn't the first hot hatchback, nor is it, dare I suggest, maybe the best hot hatch, but such is the image that Volkswagen have created for it, especially the GTI, it is the one that we always think about when we hear those three letters. But here's the thing, as we're moving towards the new world of electrification, Volkswagen don't want us to think of the new ID.3 as a GTI. No, they've used three new letters for this one, but there is a car that they say is the electric equivalent of the legend that is a GTI. Except this time, the letters we need to remember are GTX. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Volkswagen ID.3 GTX. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's review of Volkswagen's new ID.3 GTX, well, a couple of things. As you can see, yes, we're back in the favourite multi-storey car park, and that is because there's another storm in the UK. Great, brilliant. Anyway, sorry about that, can't help the weather, this is what we've got to do. So, let's crack on with it, shall we? Right, as always, make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel, please. I know once you've done that, press the little bell button down below, because then, of course, you get notified when the next video is up and loaded and is gone live. Once you've watched this week's video, if you do enjoy it, despite the surroundings, and of course, don't forget, give it a little thumbs up, and of course, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars we feature on the channel, such as the ID.3 GTX, and of course, on AutoEV as a whole. So the ID.3. It's had a bit of a troubled gestation, hasn't it, in some respects. Now, this was the car that was to sort of lay the ghost of the Dieselgate scandal way back when they launched it a few years back ago. They wanted to sort of move away from all that, forget it all, start afresh, and Volkswagen themselves wanted to be seen as the purveyor of electric mobility in the automotive world. So much so that they were the first car manufacturer to sign up to the Paris Climate Treaty, and they invested no less than 30 billion euros into making sure that they were electrified and moving forward towards a net zero sort of for 2024. But the car wasn't perfect when it was launched. You know, software glitches plagued it, the build quality wasn't quite right, and whilst it was a good car, it wasn't quite the great one that maybe we had come to expect, especially with Volkswagen saying that it's the third pillar in their people's car, you know, after the Beetle and the Golf. So it was a hugely important car for them. So yeah, it wasn't perfect. However, things have improved. Last year they made a lot of changes to the car, you know, they really stepped up the quality, they simplified what was a very confusing range, and they said that the car is a lot better, and they promised us a performance variant of it, and this is what we have here. But why have they not called it a GTI? I mean, the badge carries so much clout, and as I say, as soon as you hear it, you immediately, or I certainly think that, you immediately think of the Volkswagen Golf GTI. Why have they not called the ID.3 a GTI? Are they trying to instill a new world order into us? Or are they not quite confident enough at what they've given us? Well, it's up to us at AutoEV to find out. However, as always, before we move on with the road test review, let's take a quick snapshot about what the ID.3 GTX is all about. So the GTX is the performance flagship of the ID.3 range, and it joins the other GTX models across Volkswagen's electric offerings such as the ID.4, ID.5, ID.7 and ID. Buzz. However, unlike the other GTX variants, in the ID.3 it remains a single motor rear-wheel drive car. Power is rated at 326 PS for a 0 to 62 time of 5.7 seconds. It's fitted with a 79 kilowatt-hour usable capacity battery that's capable of delivering up to 369 miles on the WLTP cycle. And prices start from just over £46,000 before options here in the UK. So it's as fast as a GTI, it's as practical as a GTI, and Volkswagen tell me it's as fun to drive as a GTI. So why is it not called GTI? Well, the only way we're going to find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, despite the weather, is still the AutoEV one. Okay, as always, we start with the styling of the car. By the way, has anybody spotted the little Easter egg that I've done here? The fact that Volkswagen have called the ID.3 the third pillar in their people's car, and I've parked it between two pillars. 1, 2, 3. No? Okay. Somebody's obviously put 50p in the meter. There we go. I am sorry about the quality of the video, but as I say, the weather, I can't help it, and this is the only place I can do it that's undercover. Right, enough of that styling. Well, it's a ID.3 which got a facelift last year, and a good facelift. I liked it. They did away with the black plastic bit on the bonnet there, so there's much longer bonnet. So weirdly, they made it look a bit more like a combustion engine car by sort of like lengthening the bonnet. You've got this sort of like swooping down nose here, a lot of aero work at the front here. Obviously, you've still got your nice LED lights in the front there, your big VW logo there, but the front has changed now on the GTX model. You've got these little arrowhead daytime running lights there, and this more open sort of like cross-hatched grille, which is very similar to what you now get on the Golf GTI and of course other GTX models across the Volkswagen range, or maybe more the sporty versions of things, because I think it's also on the Passat a hybrid estate. If you go for the R-Line model, it gets that type of front grille, but of course it's designed to be a bit more sporty looking. But it would pass you by, wouldn't it, in some respects, because it is just an ID.3. You know, they haven't put, you know, there's no GTX badging on the front there, or a coloured sort of like strip through it, like a red strip or something like that. There's just that, and those new DRLs there. I mean, it's nothing wrong with the way that it looks, but I thought they might have done something a little bit different just to make it, I don't know, stand it apart a little bit more from the rest of the range. Maybe it's round the rest of the car they've done that. Well, yes, and then again, no. You get standard fit 20-inch alloys. Now, they're normally a silver finish with a black sort of like trim inside them, whereas you can have it as an option to be all gloss black, which obviously they've done on this car. But again, I think it hides the car's potential. I think it makes the car actually, it doesn't make it stand out any by having these big black wheels. I don't think it really suits the car, personally. Obviously you get the two-tone paint finish that you get in a lot of ID.3s, you know, this one obviously with the white with the black at the top there. Woo, there's a badge, GTX badging in black there. There is a new side sill section down at the bottom here, that's new. There's a little bit more sort of like aero work going on down there. But again, it's not quite as, it doesn't quite grab you like a Cupra Born does, certainly not the VZ model, which is a car we're going to talk about a lot in this review, because obviously it's one of its main competitors. Of course, you get your usual ID.3 door mirrors there, with little cameras in them, and the side repeaters there. Nice big chunky door handles that obviously light up, you know, illuminate at night at the front as well, so you can see where they are. But yeah, it's the standard 5-door ID.3 that we've seen and we've been used to for a little while. The sort of like decal sticker that they had on that C-pillar, that's gone as well. That went with the facelift, and they've made some changes around the back. But again, it's maybe just a bit too subtle, I think. And round the back, no, it's just really the same again. You know, apologies, the car is filthy because of the way that the weather is, and you know, it's just, yeah, it was clean when I left this morning. It is no longer clean, so apologies on that. Yes, anyway, yeah, you've got your GTX badge there, which again is in these letters, which is black on this black tailgate section here. So you can't see that at all, really, in that sense. There's some new lights that they did obviously on the facelift last year, and they now move into sort of like the actual rear hatch as well, and you get the X motif on them as well. And then there's a tiny little bit more of that sort of like grille section down at the bottom there, you know, that cross-hatch grille to match up with the front. But that's really it. You know, there's no real sort of like, you know, there's no red piping around it, there's no red stripes on it. You get your big roof spoiler, but you get that in a standard ID.3. Now, as I say, we're going to compare it an awful lot with the Cupra Born, and that's a car I think, even in base form, really looks like a hot hatch. But in VZ form, you know, the bigger wheels and sort of like the dark chrome lettering and the titanium finish on mirrors and things, I think that really does stand apart. And this just doesn't for me. But then maybe you like that, because as I say, it doesn't really matter what I think at the end of the day. It's what you guys think that matters, because you're out there buying these cars. Do you like the subtleness of this? You know, would this tempt you? If you drive a Golf GTI at the moment and you're thinking about going electric, would you be tempted by this because it is a bit more subtle? Do you like the subtlety of it, or do you, a bit like me, do you think there should just be a little bit more, something a bit more special about the car that makes you think a little bit more? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Well, of course, Practicality is going to be the same as a standard ID.3, which is to say 385 litres of boot space. There's some underfloor storage to take the cables and things, which is quite nice, but nothing up at the front, obviously. The boot space is all right. It's nothing particularly special to write home about, but it's practical enough. You get a 60-40 split in the rear seat, which will take total capacity up to 1,601 litres, and you've also got the load-through facility as well. So if you've got two rear passengers, you've got a longer load, I don't know, like some shelves or whatever, you can pop it through as well. There's some little hooks on the sides of the boot as well, so you can hang bags on, you know, like a rucksack, or, you know, my tripod bag there. Suitcase wise, well, you know, you can get variations of them, but there's the large suitcase. Let's pop that in there, that goes in there. There's the medium one in there. They go in, and you get soft bags and jackets on the top, or, you know, some different, you know, maybe some carry-ons in there as well. It's a relatively, you know, easy thing to load into as well. There's not like a particularly large high sill or a drop into it, and you get the solid parcel shelf as well. So nothing really different to what you've come to expect from a standard ID.3. It is just a variation on a familiar theme. Which means, yep, you've guessed it, the rear room's exactly the same as well. And again, it's fine. You know, it's a typical ID.3. It's a reasonable size 5-door family hatchback. You know, there is seating for 3 now. You know, I think they've done something different. They've repackaged the battery or something. You know, so you do actually get the third belt, you know, for the middle, which you didn't used to get on the big battery version of the ID.3 when it first came out. So that's good. So there is seating for 3 across. And the rear seats are perfectly fine. They're sculpted out on the backrest, so the outer passengers just have a nice, you know, it snuggles the back nicely, and of course there's adjustable head restraints as well. Oh, if you've not got a centre passenger, then of course you've got the fold-down armrest with 2 cup holders in there as well, and you've got mat pockets in the back seats, as you can see there, and there's 2 USB-C connectivity ports down there, and a flat floor across. Again, if you've got someone sat in the middle of the bench, they've got plenty of footroom. You don't really feel your legs being too pushed up. Obviously the battery's underneath the car, but actually in fairness, you know, it's not bad, and I can still get my feet underneath the seat in front of me, the driver's seat. Even though it's in its lowest position, and that's my driving position. Headroom, again, is fine for me. It's this car's got the big panoramic glass sunroof, but it is sculpted out at the back above where your head is, so there's reasonable headroom for me. I would think somebody is 6 foot, you know, is still going to be okay, but they might just find their hairline, but obviously they've got more hair than me, then it's going to be brushing the headline, but other than that it should be all right. There's a couple of sort of like deep door bins down the side for sweeties and things like that, and again some more little pockets up there, stick some polo mints in. So yeah, it's the ID.3. There's no real any difference back here, but as I say, you can now get 3 across, and it's a fairly accommodating 5-door family hatchback. It's certainly better than you get, although the boot is smaller. It's a better for rear accommodation than something like, say, the Renault Megane is, albeit they don't do a performance version of that. But still, as I say, in terms of rear accommodation, it's a better car for a family than that car. So in some respects, the interior can come in for some criticism still, much like we've done from the exterior. There are differences in here with the GTX, which you'll be able to see, you know, the ambient lighting. Well, in saying that, you can change the colour of it, but, you know, it's red, you know, through that. You've got red stitch on the dash, red stitch around the steering wheel, you get the little GTX badge on the steering wheel. The seats, I'm going to talk about them in a second, but they've got the GTX logo and the little plastic bit of trim up there as well. So there's a little bit more of a nod to a sportier car in here. However, it's still not perfect, but I'll get onto that in a second. Okay, so there was a massive criticism with the ID.3 when it came out surrounding this, okay? That really did change last year in the update in the facelift car, and it's changed again. The screen is slightly bigger, and I've got to say that the software now is much better than it was. And in fairness, you know, they've done what they said they would do. They've improved it, and it is better. There's no getting away from it. As I say, it's still not perfect. I still would personally like to see more physical buttons inside the car, but the usability of it is better. It's quicker to respond now to certain things. You know, the icons, you know, they're just a bit clearer, you know, so you can, you know, when you swipe through, it seems just a little bit slicker, a bit faster. You know, the navs, oh sorry, this list is empty. Why is it, oh, map, that's why. It's the destination. You know, the map itself is sort of like a bit better and it responds slightly faster. Obviously you get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto as well, which is wireless. You know, so if you're using Waze or Google Maps or Apple Maps, then, you know, that's good and you can default to that. You get shortcut buttons across the top of the screen now, which I really like. It's very similar to the ID.7 Tourer that I tested the other week, you know. So your driving modes are there at a touch of a button. Your assistance modes, now this is the thing that I really, you know, that I do appreciate they've done. So turning these infernal driver assistance systems off, you know, if you go just from your sort of, well, let's go back to where it is so we can show you. So if you're using your nav, you've got your radio on, you want to turn off your speed limit warning, you press the assist button there, the speed warning, there it is there. So 1, 2, that's it. Okay, so it's not the end of the world, is it? You know, and lane keep assist is there as well. So there we are, and obviously there's other things there which you can see. There's loads of them, isn't there? Look, hundreds of them. So that's better. Oh, sorry. You still get these slider controls, these touch sensitive slider controls for the aircon and the volume, but the backlit, as we've now come to expect across the Volkswagen cars. So again, they're not the best to use, but at least they are better and they're backlit. I still don't like the touch sensitive buttons on the steering wheel. They still annoy me. I still hit them by mistake. I don't care what anybody says. Turn the heated steering wheel on by mistake the other day by turning around a corner because the heel of my hand brushed against it and turned the heated steering wheel on. It's still not ideal, and I still think this light switch pack that's buried in the here under the dash is a silly place to put it. Don't understand why it's not over on your right hand side where you expect to find it. But there you go. You don't get the twist transmission lever that you did on the first cars now. It's like the, let me just see if I can move the steering wheel so you can see it. So it's like the ID.7, you've got on a sort of like a column stock now. There's your transmission lever now. So twist forward for drive and for brake mode, and then back for reverse and push for park. Which then does mean obviously all your lights and wipers and everything are now mounted in one stock on the left hand side. And that's complicated. That just takes a bit of getting used to. Once you start to know what it all is, it's fine, you know. But sort of like, you know, switching the wipers on, for instance, you know, to wash them, you don't pull it back towards you because that flashes light. You got to push it, you know. So it's just wee things like that, you know. It just means it's a bit more complicated, right? So I'm not going to labour about that. The driver instrumentation cluster, that stays the same. The one thing I do like about that is it's mounted on the steering column, so it doesn't matter where you have the wheel, that moves with it, so you've always got a good view of that. That I do like. Let's talk about a few things that maybe aren't so good in some respects. Now, this is interesting. First of all, the quality is up, okay? So if you have been used to driving the very first the ID.3s, when a lot of people criticised the quality of it, they have made marked improvements on that. So we're not quite back to where we were with the Mark II Golf, with the big clunky switches. But you know, you've got this leatherette covering on the dashboard here on this GTX. The top of the dashboard there is squidgy, you know, sort of like a rubber, squidgy rubber. That's nice. The door panels, you know, they're nice. It's sort of like at the top. I don't particularly like the piano black armrest bits where the window controls are, and I still don't like the fact it's only got 2 window switches. I think it's the stupidest idea ever and silly cost cutting. Just put 4 switches on it and be done with it. So again, that's better, but it's not. As you move lower down the door, you can start to feel it getting a bit cheaper, but on the whole it's better. Right, this was the interesting thing for me. My daughter was in the car with me the other day and we're driving along, and she made the comment, she said, "This doesn't feel that special inside." Now, bearing in mind she's 11, but she's in pretty much every press car I have. And she likes cars, and she was saying, this doesn't feel that special for a sporty car. And the way she put it was because it's so open. She says, I feel like you need to be in the car a bit more, you need to be hunkered down. Now, that's the thing with the Cupra Born, where you've got this rising kind of console here. But the ID.3 GTX doesn't get that. It's more of an open feel to it. And it does give you that impression that you're sitting on the car and not in it. It's a weird thing, and she summed it up perfectly. It's odd. It doesn't feel that sporty a car to drive. It's the same with the seats. There's nothing wrong with them in terms of comfort, but these are the sort of like the optional seats you get on the standard ID.3 Pro, and they're the same seats as I think you get on the normal Cupra Borns, whereas this is the top of the range. This is the GTX, so it doesn't get sort of like, you know, the fancy seats like the Cupra Born VZ does. It doesn't get the Seatbelt Cup seats or anything like that, and as a consequence of that, it doesn't feel that sporty to sit in it. It feels just like a regular ID.3, you know, with some red bits on it. That's it, you know. It doesn't make you want to get in it and go, oh yeah, I want to go for a drive in this. And it was my 11-year-old daughter that brought that up. She was the one that said it. It just doesn't feel that sporty. And she's right, it doesn't. There's nothing wrong with the interior as such in some respects. But it's a bit like the outside. I just think it should be a bit more. It should be a bit more special. You get the two cup holders here, obviously. You know, again, a liberal dose of this piano black plastic, which I'm now detesting cars. Wireless charging pad down there, but then another little handy little cubby there just to throw things down. You've also got the centre cubby here, which doesn't close. He says, "Oh no, I told a lie. Sorry, it does." Oh, I've just found that. It does close. I'm really sorry, Volkswagen. I hadn't realised that. It's been open all the time. That's fine. Armrests. Yeah, again, do I really want armrests in a hot hatch? No, but it does make it quite comfortable if you're doing a long journey. And I'm going to talk about that more when we're out driving it. So look, there's a lot to like about the interior of the car. Again, if you've come from an ID.3, one of the earlier cars, you will notice some really beneficial differences in this. They've changed that. It's a lot better. I'm still not keen on some of the touch switches and things, but in fairness, maybe that's a personal thing. They do work and they are better than they were. I wish they didn't have them on the steering wheel. I wish they'd put 4 electric window switches on the armrest. I don't care what anybody says. And they've put that in a really silly place, the light switch. But my main criticism of the interior is it just doesn't feel like a sporty interior. It doesn't feel, you know, like you sit in a Golf GTI, you know, you get the tartan seat covers and you get the GTI logos and stuff like that, and the red trim and stuff. It's not really here. You know, you get different style of seats in the GTI to the rest of the cars, whereas this doesn't. You know, you can get these seats on a standard ID.3. I just wish they'd made a bit more of an effort, considering that they really are pushing this as the performance variant of the car. That's my big problem with it. But as I say, in terms of the quality, big uplift in quality, big uplift in the software that's in that. And in fairness, as a usable everyday car, it is quite hard to fault in a lot of ways. It's not perfect, but not a lot of cars are. And in fairness, the changes Volkswagen have made have been good. I just wish they'd put more of an effort into this as a GTX. That's all I'm saying. So the changes they made to the ID.3 last year apply here as well. So, but there's just one battery size that you get on the GTX, okay? And it's the biggest one that they do. It's an 84 kilowatt hour one, which is a 79 kilowatt hour capacity, usable capacity, okay? So 79 kilowatt hours usable capacity, which should give, according to WLTP figures, 369 miles. You're probably going to see high 200s, maybe 300 in the warmer months, in fairness. Maybe a little bit more if you're a bit careful with it. But should you be careful with the performance hatchback? Anyway, that's by the by. Decent charging speeds, 185 kilowatts on the DC, meaning a 10 to 80% charge at that speed only takes 26 minutes. They're coming down, folks, and that's okay. I'm quite happy with that. You also get an 11 kilowatt onboard charger as standard. So if you have the faster 3-phase electricity and an 11 kilowatt wall box, you can go from a flat to full time 8.5 hours. But if it's a 7 kilowatt wall box that you've got like I have, it's 12 hours 45 minutes. And disappointingly, a heat pump is an option, folks. Right, let's get the car up on the road. So first of all, apologies, you're not going to get some nice B-roll, you know, nice little cornering shots of the car, some nice arty little shots of the wheels turning and stuff like that, because, well, it's just lashing down outside and it's horrible. But I don't think you tune into these road test reviews for my videography skills. I think you're more interested in to know what I think about the car, so that's what we'll concentrate on. Could be wrong, of course. Yeah, there you go. Right, the car, how does it drive? Okay, so look, I want to put one thing out there straight away, okay? This is not a bad car. I know I seem to say that an awful lot. This is not a bad car. This is actually a very good car. And in many ways, I think this is probably No, I don't think probably. This is, in my opinion, this is the best ID.3 that they've built. There's no getting away from that. It's a good car, okay? It's just not the GTI that they seem to claim that it is, okay? Now, let's talk about the raw numbers first. There are two models of GTX depending on the market, okay? We only get one in the UK, which is this car, the GTX Performance. So this is the more powerful version with 321 horsepower. There's a GTX, standard GTX, with 282 horsepower, I think it is, available in other markets. We don't get that in the UK, so it's just this car. So if I say GTX, it's the GTX Performance I'm actually referring to for the sake of this test, okay? So bear with, I know it's confusing, but just bear with me, okay? Right, 0 to 60, 5.7 seconds. So it's quite swift. And in fairness, a standard Golf GTI does 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds. So it's a similar level of performance to a standard GTI. But what it seems to lack is the fun factor of a GTI, the adjustability of a GTI. Don't get me wrong, it's a swift car. You can cover ground very, very quickly in this car. There's no getting away from it. But it's not a particularly enjoyable car to do that with, if that makes sense. You know, and as I say, that's not me saying it's a bad car, because it's not, it's a good car. It's just not, it's not the Cupra Born VZ. Okay, now, this is important because, you know, if you think about, you know, how many cars are sort of shared across, or platforms and running gear now are shared across many different manufacturers, you know, from within Stellantis Group, for instance. Volkswagen, obviously, with this is an MEB platform car, other cars sit on it, you know, the Skoda Enyaq, the ID.3, the ID.4, sorry, the ID.4, ID.5, you know, the Audi Q4 e-tron, and of course the Cupra Born. And this is the car that seems to, you know, this and the Cupra Born are the two cars that, you know, Skoda don't do a 5-door hatchback like this, you know, Audi don't do one, so it's these two guys that sit side by side. But the Born VZ, which is sort of this equivalent, is a much nicer, or sorry, no, it's not a much nicer car, it's a better driver's car. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? It's just a better driver's car. You know, there's more adjustability in the chassis. Actually, before we even get to that, one of the main points where there is a big difference is in the driving position. Again, not an uncomfortable car, this, but it does the sort of, it gets these seats, these premium seats, which you think you can get on the ID.3 Pro from memory. So they're not really sort of like special seats, and they're the standard seats that you get in a standard Cupra Born. Whereas if you get the VZ, you get those Seatbelt cup seats, and the driving position's very different. First of all, you sit lower in the car in the Born, you know, so it's a more intimate driving position. You know, you sit in the car, not on the car. So therefore you've got much more, a feeling of more tactility with it. More, God, it's going to sound really corny this, but I've got to say it, more at being at one with the car, if that makes sense. Oh good, the level crossing's down, brilliant. So there's more intimacy with the Born, you know, you feel part of the experience with it, whereas you don't in the ID.3 and the GTX. You sit in it. What this is just a fast ID.3. Okay, and as I say, I like the ID.3, it's a good car, and I like this one, it's a good car. It's just not the sort of like electric GTI that Volkswagen have been leading us to believe that they were building. And that's the difference, that's what I mean. If you were to think about it like this, my favourite road up in Scotland, the Beef Tub, which I've done a few reviews on, you know, between Moffat and Edinburgh, you know, that's a car I would drive up there in a Cupra Born just to, you know, take it on that road. I wouldn't necessarily drive this up there to take it on this road. However, the 6 hours it would take me from, you know, Surrey, my house in Surrey, to get there on motorway, this would be fine. But then so would a standard ID.3. Does that make sense? Right. So that's my biggest problem with the car. It doesn't feel like the electric hot hatch that Volkswagen's telling us that they're building, or they have built with the GTX. I'm sorry, the level crossing around the corner from us, if I catch it at the wrong time, it's down. You sit here for ages, so that's why I'm not moving. So apologies on that. Today's not going well, folks. There we go. So yeah, so that's the sort of biggest bugbear on the car. However, lots of positives to talk about. Okay, there is, you know, there's if you stay in we've got the driving modes. If you stay in the standard mode and the comfort mode, like I say, it's actually quite a nice car. You know, there's a lot of comfort to be had in the car, but then there's a lot of comfort to be had on a standard ID.3 in that sense. You know, the 20-inch wheels don't really make themselves known until you move into the sport mode, and a couple of things happen in the sport mode when you're in this. First of all, it does start to feel quite, you know, you can feel it not crashy, but you can certainly feel more road surface transitions, you know, from one surface to the next, expansion joints, you know, manhole covers, that type of thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the throttle response. It's really, really odd, because what you get is the only way to describe it is, as you apply throttle, it feels like it lunges. The whole car just seems to lunge forward. There isn't really such a nice progression that you get with other cars. You know, I've talked a lot about the fact that you know, some cars now feel, some EVs feel very mechanical in their setup, where they've got a real nice weight behind the throttle pedal, and there is to a certain extent that in here. But as I say, when you're in that sport mode and you go to accelerate, as I say, it feels like the car actually lunges, and it can get quite uncomfortable. You know, so if you're pulling away from a roundabout, you're in the sport mode, or you know, you pull out to overtake something, maybe on a dual carriageway or a wee back road or something, and you put your foot down, it's like the car just, whoa, it takes you by surprise, and as I say, it gets quite uncomfortable. And then allied that to sort of like a more uncomfortable ride, just doesn't, that's what I mean, it doesn't really gel with you as a driver. It doesn't really flow, you know, that like a good hot hatchback should, you know, like a Golf GTI does, you know, it really flows. This doesn't, you know, it's fast, but it's not fun. And that's, you know, I say that an awful lot about, you know, sort of like, you know, some of these performance EVs. It's a real difference. Don't mistake being fast for being fun. There's a lot of good front end grip. That's one thing I will say, you know, so there's a good amount of grip from the front tyres. You know, you go into a bend, there's a lot of confidence there, you know, if you are pushing on. The back end, again, you know, stays really nice and stable. You know, it's a multi-link situation at the back end. And it really seems to dig in, and you never feel like the car's getting it. But again, that's part of the issue. If you are one of those type of drivers, like, you know, like you do enjoy a good hot hatch, you know, the adjustability that you sometimes get, you know, like you got with a Cupra, you know, you could just feel where the back end was just going to start to push a bit wide. Because bear in mind, these are rear wheel drive, you know, so, you know, it is it should be, you know, set up as a driver's car. But here it just never seems to get, you never feel that intimacy, you never feel that edginess, you know, in the sense of, you know, like as I say, a really good sort of like driver's car should be, where you're just on that level, you're just on that fine line between, you know, grip and not having grip and that type of thing. Right, so that's the bugbear I have with it. Well, not a bugbear, but that's the situation with the car, the way it drives, okay, in that sense. Right, see if I put my foot down, that's what it does that, and then when you come off, it seems to then, it doesn't coast, you can feel it draw up. So as I say, if you've got these little bursts of acceleration, you come off, it really hauls back, and it feels like it's lunging all the time. Does that make sense? It doesn't flow well. Anyway, yeah, and the suspension gets crashy. You can set up individual mode, don't get me wrong, you can tailor it more, because there's an individual mode in the chassis, so you can set it all up how you want it to be, you know, and you can tailor it and tweak it. But actually, you don't need to do that in the Cupra. You just press the button and you're done. That's it. Right, that's that. So let's not talk about that anymore. One thing I do like about the new software, I think I said it in the interior bit, is the fact that, you know, turning off the assistance systems now is just a couple of pushes away. So they've got the little shortcuts at the top. So that's good. I like that. So that's better now. And there is, but there's no adjustability on the brake regen either. So again, you know, if you're a person that likes, you know, to sort of like, you know, real sort of like adjustability on your braking, you know, you go into you've got the D mode and you've got the B mode and the brake mode, and that's it. You don't have levels that you can then change around, you know, that's it. It's the one thing. You don't have anything else. So that would have been nice to see a little bit more adjustability, and again, it would have stood it apart more from the other ID.3s in the range. So look, that's where I am with it, okay? As I say, I want to be very, very clear about it. This is a good car, okay? It's a good ID.3. It's, as I say, I think it's the best ID.3 that they've built. It's a really nice one, you know, and it's very comfortable, it's fast, if that's what you're after. It's just not that much fun. It just doesn't have the adjustability, the feel, the intimacy that the Cupra gives you. And if you're looking for a hot hatch, if you're coming from a Golf GTI and you're standing in the Volkswagen showroom, you know, and the salesperson standing there telling you this is the way forward, this is the electric version of what you've got at the moment, it's not. You need to leave the showroom and go to the Cupra showroom, because that's the one that is the electric equivalent of what you've got. Wears a Cupra badge. So let's talk about the important stuff. The folding, the Wonga. How much cash is this going to need to be passed from you to your local Volkswagen dealer if you decide that an ID.3 GTX is your bag? Okay, so there's only one level of GTX that we get in the UK, okay? Other markets get two. There's a GTX and a GTX Performance. We just get the GTX Performance. So like I said when I was driving, apologies if using the nomenclature GTX is confusing to you when you see GTX Performance. If you're in the UK, it's just the GTX Performance we get. Okay, sorry to waffle on there. Right, which means it has a starting price of £46,225, okay, and that's before options. Then this particular car has some options fitted to it. It has carpet mats, thanks Volkswagen, driver assistance package, panoramic glass roof, and the removable luggage compartment floor. So the lift up floor, that's an option, okay. That brings the total price of this test car to £49,440, okay? Now that means it's more expensive to start with than the Cupra Born VZ, and it gets even more expensive when you do add those options onto it. Right, let's talk about the competition that the car's going to face, because there is quite a few now. You know, when you're talking about fast EVs, and I don't just mean like fast like Tesla fast, I mean actual performance orientated EVs. Naturally the rival for it, the main one, is the Cupra Born VZ. That's it, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's the big rival this car is up against. But of course you've also got to consider the much cheaper MG4 X-Power, huge amount of power for the price. You know, when you talk about bang for your buck, that car is still up there, I think. It's fast, but it's not, you know, I don't think it's the MG4 I personally would have. And in some respects, you know, you can feel it is a much cheaper car, and it does sort of now feel it, especially with the improvements Volkswagen have made to the ID.3 and of course with the Cupra as well. So in fairness, you now can see why there is a price difference. But still, if it's just performance you're after, that's a car that you can't ignore. Smaller cars, of course there is. You've got your new Mini Cooper SE, so that's there as well. Now that's a 3-door, but remember you can also have the Aceman SE as well, so they're 5-door crossover, and both of those cars are going to be had in John Cooper Works trims this year, so the first electric John Cooper Works cars, so they're to be considered as well. Also as well, maybe something like the Alpine A290, based on the Renault 5, smaller car than this, but still 5 doors and still a very engaging hot hatchback. You know, or so they tell me. I haven't had a chance to drive the car as yet, unfortunately. I'm hoping to do it very, very soon. What else have we got? Well, there's the Abarth, isn't there? The 500e, but a bit like the Mini, if you need the practicality, then there's the 600e, but it's a crossover style of car, but still it's 5 doors, it's practical. And if we're talking of crossovers, then you've also got to consider cars such as the Alfa Romeo Junior Veloce, the Smart #1 and #3 Brabus. They're good value for money. And if you're talking about the Smarts, then you've also got to consider as well the Volvo EX30. So there are cars around which do compete for this at similar money if you're after a performance orientated electric hatchback. So here's what we like, and also what we don't like about Volkswagen's new ID.3 GTX. Well, we like its improved quality. It has decent efficiency and good electrical architecture. It is quick. It still is practical as an ID.3. And kept in the comfort mode, it is actually quite a comfortable car to drive. And here's what we don't like. Well, it doesn't really look any different to a standard ID.3. The driving position just doesn't feel right for a car pertaining to be a hot hatch. There's no doubt that it can get expensive. For us, it lacks any driver engagement that you would expect from a hot hatch built by Volkswagen. In our opinion, the Cupra-born VZ does it much better for much less. I have to emphasise that the ID.3 GTX does banish an awful lot of the issues that I had with the original ID.3. There's a vast improvement in the quality of the car. You know, the build quality is much better, the use of materials is much nicer, and that software system is vastly improved over what went before. And at the end of the day, it's a very usable, very practical 5-door family hatchback that wears a Volkswagen badge, and it does exactly as you'd expect one of them to do. The problem I have with the car, however, is this, and this is why I've got my iPad, because I want to read you a statement by a man called Kai Gruntz. Now he is, and I quote, the member of the Volkswagen brand board of management responsible for development. Imagine how long his business card has to be. But he said, and I'm quoting directly here, with its spontaneous and superior power delivery, the new ID.3 GTX Performance is, for me, the electric counterpart to our sporty compact icon, the Golf GTI Club Sport. Now I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I really, really don't. It is possibly the best ID.3, no, actually no it is, it's the best ID.3 that the Volkswagen company has built. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I really don't even see it as a counterpart to a standard Golf GTI, let alone a GTI Club Sport. It's a good car, but it's not a great one like that particular car could be. And for me, these three characters, the GTX, that's the right ones for this. It shouldn't have worn the GTI badge, and I'm glad that it hasn't. But I will finish with this. If you are after the best electric hot hatch that the Volkswagen Group makes, it's not one with 3 letters you need, it's one with 2 letters, and that's VZ, and they sit on the back of a Cupra Born. That's the car you should buy. Thank you for watching another road test review, another car park review from us here at AutoEV. Apologies again about this, but what can we do? Can't change the weather. Please make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel. I promise we'll do more outside this year, I really do. Make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel and then press the little bell button down below, because that means you'll get notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's video, despite the surroundings, then of course give it a little thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think about the ID.3 GTX? Am I wrong? Do you prefer it? Do you think, yeah, that's what a modern hot hatch should be like, going electric? Have you got one? Have you got one on order? Are you coming from a Golf GTI into it? Have you driven it after your Golf GTI? Or have you chosen something else instead? Have you gone for the Cupra? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, as always, we're across on social media. So, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, so please give us a follow there, because that certainly helps the channel. And if you're in the market for an electric car, it might not be a new ID.3 GTX. Maybe you're thinking about a used ID.3, but you need to know a bit more about it before you go and buy one. How do you find out? Well, here's how. Stay on the AutoEV homepage on our YouTube channel. Just at the top there, you'll see a little magnifying glass. Type the name of the car that you're interested in there, and if it's been a new electric car in the UK in the last 5 or 6 years that we've been going, then we will have subjected it to the road test, the actual car buyer's trust, when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, is the AutoEV one. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for putting up with this. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'll see you again soon. I'm off to put 50p in the meter now.